And it might grow to the negative or to the positive. If you don't train, the brain will be empty. Then when the child goes out, there's nothing there, then people will begin to write, different things.
And dump all sorts.
Okay.
Well, I think in addition to what Madam said, there are different issues that we equally need to consider. The parental role is definitely sacrosanct and important. But again, we have to look at the fact that raising up a child takes a lot of responsibilities. Then it involves different groups and interests. Now, globally, it's an obligation. That's why you have nation states subscribing to different international treaties on protection of the children, and this involves creating enabling environments. A nation has a duty, particularly under the Convention on the Rights of the Child. The nation has a duty to protect the rights of children, and at the same time, to respect and to respect the rights of the children, and ensure that those rights are institutionalized and protected, and equally to protect those children from exploitation, from economic exploitation, maybe exploitation for criminal activities or pornography and all these issues that we are raising. So the implication of that is that different role players have to be identified. And that's why we have different institutions that are in place, to secure the well-being of a child. So, and again, we're talking about issues like the issue that we are looking at, trying to consider now, the school and all those stuff. Government has a duty to ensure that those schools are operating within the confinement of law. There certain limitations must be imposed. And so the role of the parent is there. The society equally has its own role to play. And all this we really need to understand and appreciate. The government has a duty to ensure that the right law is put in place. That's why we have issues like the Right of the Child Act in Nigeria, the rights of the child law in Ondo State here, and at different levels. So all these rights, all these provisions of the law are expected to guide the training of a child. The school has its own role. Government has its own role. For instance, the education board has its own role in ensuring that the child is given the right education. And then the atmosphere, the condition under which that child is receiving that education equally has to be monitored. So all this, equally, the society has a role to ensure that the right information is accessed by children. And again, that wrongful information or wrong informations are not accessed by children. So it takes a lot of efforts.
And a lot of groups
a lot of different interests, role players to raise a child.
All right. Now, I want to pick from what you said, talking about the education board having the responsibility to ensure, what the children are exposed to, the teachings that they get and all of that. Some of the things that he also said is the fact that today, most schools are more interested in the grades, in the results, in the certificate. Even snowballs down to even university, tertiary institutions. That people are more interested in the certificate that you bag at the end. That very little attention is being paid on character building and behavioral skills.
Yeah, I agree absolutely with him. And again, you now know that some of these points that are being raised are actually, it goes beyond the parents alone. If the parents are making those moves, what is the society doing to ensure that parents, the appetite, or let me say the desire of the parents are controlled? So it's about enforcing our laws, putting in place the right rules and regulations. For instance, you talked about taking children from here to Dubai on excursion.
No, not excursion. Sorry. They actually went to represent their school on a world game program.
Okay, I said, but again, even beyond that, beyond representing, we are going for competition. We have instances, we have occasions in which schools now, even from Ondo State, here, take children to overseas on excursion. I think these are developments that the government or our lawmakers should pay attention to. If we are going to take children out on such
Trips.
a trip, what are the rules, what are the conditions that are going to guide or regulate such trips? So these are issues that are beginning to come up, and that's why we must have a virile and strong legislature or role players or policy makers.
Sometimes we do have these laws, but usually implementation is the problem. Like you've mentioned quite a lot of child rights.
Let me
rights.
You see, we are now narrowing down. We are talking about standard. You can have laws. You have the primary laws and the legislations in place. These are technical issues that are just coming up. You cannot find this in any law that children are going to be taken from Nigeria to visit Dubai or to visit
any part of the country, outside the country.
But because the society is dynamic, and so our laws equally must be dynamic. Standards or guidelines should have been given to those schools. You cannot go beyond this. If you are taking so number of students away, this is the number of accommodation you can have. This is the number of pupils that you can have in a particular row and an accommodation. You know, these are some of the things.
Also, number of teachers that
must go with them. So it's an emerging development. It's an issue that is just coming up. And so our law must catch up with those things, because you cannot run a society with the old laws. So because these are unknown practices, there are issues that are just coming up. So my own idea is that if there are things we cannot stop, but government must put in place the right measures. You know, even where you must take a child outside the country, it must be under strict conditions. You just raised the issue of the number of teachers that you accompany. How many pupils are we taking overseas? In this case, they took about 70 pupils.
76.
76 pupils, and they were accompanied by only 5 teachers.
Not easy to supervise.
To supervise.
Not so easy to supervise.
That arrangement itself has a lot of problems that we need to consider. But the point I'm making again is our policy makers too should wake up in terms of maybe how we are raising our children. It must be holistic. There must be total control. For instance, we're talking about exposure to the digital age, the digital world. What are the measures that we have in place to restrict access of these children to some of these things? In other countries, some of these things are under control. But as a society, we are not even getting near it. So these are some of the things I want us to look at. There are children that are raised from very good homes. I mean, the university system, I know. When you bring some of our students that are in trouble, when you meet their parents and they tell you the condition under which those children are raised, you know that the parents are putting their best.
Exactly. I was going to come back to you, Mrs. Onebi, because you said when the foundation is strong and the kind of materials what you deposit into that child really matters. Like he's pointing out now, that child goes out to the outside world, mixes with other children. How do you now begin to control the behavioral patterns of that child? And then there's also a tendency where the peer pressure could come in and then the child begins to change. Or do you think there's a way that the foundation could be so strong that the child will say no to every form of influence that might want to come his way?
Yes, I believe. And that is why, as a psychologist, we always ask, when you see someone, behaving in certain ways, you always ask, and that is our major, focus on why this particular attitude, why this behavior. All other things we are saying, they are just outside the particular child. Okay. Outside pressure, like I said the other time, that whatever you put inside the building matters. Yes, if someone is coming with an hammer and start, hitting it or on that building, yes, to an extent. Sometimes the old building, you will take a nail, you just want to, put it inside, and you find it so difficult. So I believe that all these things have been there years back, and they will still continue to be there. But I just believe that these days, even some parents, there are some things that they don't even have, and they cannot give the children. So I believe that there are still some children that are still in the university system, and they're still able to stand and say no to some things. We were talking about drug abuse, for example. We talk about the availability and all that. Even if it's not available, people that wants to actually take it, they will look for it. But even if it's, very, very, just all around us, you still see some people that will stand and say no. Even up to this day, you still see some children that will not involve themselves in all these things.
Okay.
So I believe that there are skills to learn in life for these children. One of them
children learning, or the parents now?
The parents will help them to learn.
Okay.
I'm still going into that. The way we treat our children, we have different type of parenting style. And this will go a long way to affect them either positively or negatively. Because I believe that, yes, there are pressures, but the foundation that you have laid and your relationship with your child, even when the child is facing one, I've witnessed it, the child will come home to ask you, what will I do in this situation?
Because you already have a relationship.
Because you already have a relationship.
I think he's disagreeing.
So I believe that, a child, that's developed under a very good parenting style. Like I would say, there are some, that they grew up under what we call permissive. As a child, you are throwing temper tantrum. And they're saying, okay, you want to have it, just take. That child,
indulging the child at every point.
That is permissive. So when we see such child, even in university and every or anywhere else, you don't need to tell me that this child is from a permissive parent.
Let's take this.
And sorry.
Okay.
So and then sometimes you talk about uninvolved. Some people, they are not even, just like what you said, sir, about the internet and all that. They are not involved. They don't even know what they are using it or what the children are doing and all that. So at the point they will be surprised, why is my child? But the child has started this under your roof. And some, they are authoritarian. You see them shouting all the time, and all that. So the children are scared. They can't discuss anything with you. Even whatever they are going through, so they prefer going to their friends. And that is where I think peer pressure will come in. Because if you don't have a role model at home, there's nobody you can discuss with. Like I was telling someone yesterday, I saw a child, someone was telling me about a child asking a woman outside. I asked, where is the mother? A child of maybe 14 years old asking her, excuse me, ma, what is the meaning of virginity is stupidity? Somebody somewhere must have been telling her virginity is stupidity. Where is the mother? She didn't ask the mother. She went to somebody that was selling, and that person said at that moment that she didn't even have time to explain to her. But when you train your child, like if you're an authoritative parent, for example, you give an instruction, you give a command, then you back it up with instruction. I am not just commanding you to do this. This is the reason why and why you should do it. And so by that you are building their conscience. And so when the conscience is strong, and that is why the Bible says, train up a child, so that wherever the child goes, it will still stand on that.
Okay.
Well, I don't want us to overflog the show of parental role. There's no doubt about that the foundation lies with the parents, and the parents have obligations to raise these children in a very good way. But again, I don't want us to rule out the fact that as these children are growing, they are getting exposed to so many things. And I'm particular about the role of the society. Particularly, we're looking at the boarding system now. A lot of children are being sent to boarding schools. Government has a role to play there, particularly in monitoring those facilities. Sometimes children are left to be alone in some schools. They're on their own. The teacher will be appointed as house master or house mistress, but she doesn't live directly with those people. So there's a need to regulate some of these things, because these are stages at which those students are getting molded. Their characters are molded. Then sometimes, how long do they stay with parents now? The moment the child enters secondary school, he doesn't spend much time with the parents. Most of the time, the children are in school. And that's where they are learning. Oh, there are children that are sent to boarding school at the age of 2 or 3. 2, 3 are in primary school boarding. So these children are learning a lot from others. Like you rightly said, many of these children are not from homes where they are strictly raised. And so those ones, they share the same facilities with the ones that are expected to be raised by, in quotes, strict parents or purposeful parenting. But in this case, they are going to be together and they are spending the best of their time with them. That's where the role of the society comes in. The government has a role to play there to ensure that certain standard must be in place in our boarding schools. Don't be surprised that some of these children are smuggling phones to their hostels. They smuggle phones. Then again, talking about, I know in some private universities where students are not allowed to carry phones. That's how today, they allow them to access internet maybe in the general setup, but you don't carry phone around.
But lots of things are still going on within them.
I agree with you.
Even without the phone.
I agree with you, but what I'm saying is this, even at the foundation level, like we said, the child, we all know that teenagers are usually rebellious. At that teenage age, the children will want to experiment with many things. So at that level, what are we doing as a society? When you look at the education system, you find out that government has clearly abdicated its responsibilities. Government is not playing the role.
Like we were talking, Ashwaji was saying that back in the days, there used to be monitoring teams.
No, I remember in our primary school days.
I remember this.
In our primary school days, every month they will tell you inspectors are coming. They call it Onibewu. Onibewu is coming. So they look at everything, your nails, your appearance, your outlook, everything. But now teachers don't have time for those things. And as teachers are abdicating those responsibilities, the local school board is no longer in place. They are there, but they don't move out of the confines of their offices. If they must go out, it's like they just want to see what is going on, what can they make. People are particular about material things. So the shift we must look beyond parenting. We must look at enforcement of our laws, of our regulations, of our standards. What are the regulations that are coming out of public schools? Then the danger again is that because of the mismanagement of our public schools, more students are going to those private schools that are badly managed. You go to our rural areas now, whereas government every day, Subeb in Ondose for instance, is spending a lot of money renovating schools, even in those rural areas. But you visit there, you don't have pupils there. One day I was driving between Owo and Akimba. There's a school maybe on the road. Maybe I go Nipan or something like that. On the left, you are going to Akimba. Before you get to Osrc, there are very beautiful facilities there. So my car had issue. So I crossed to the school to get water, from my radiator. And I was I was overwhelmed with the structure there. Tiles everywhere looking beautiful. And I found out that in a particular class they had only 4 pupils there.
Wow.
So
the structure
I'm sorry, government is more interested, I'm sorry to use the word, the political class is more interested in projects, building facilities, because more money will come to them through contractors. But the running and management of those schools, they are not interested. How many teachers are in our schools now? Government is not recruiting teachers. You understand? And so who are the teachers that will guide these children? That will supplement the efforts from homes. They spend the best of their times in schools. From 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. The parents will come back maybe around 5 or 6. I know a lot would have gone into the day among those things. So government must go back to not just funding school, but monitoring what is going on in our public schools. The foundation, go to our public primary schools. It's only pupils of gate men, children of gate men or poor people that are going there. And so, those are schools that government is supposed to be managing directly. Now that people are moving now into private schools, government too must pay attention.
Even when they are mushroom private schools.
Yeah, so many. In fact, the one mushroom is even better. They are ramshackle, they are dilapidated. Go to the rural areas. the private schools are springing up in remote areas. Well, we have people that don't even have more than school start, that they don't even pass school start running schools. So how are they going to interpret government policies and all those things? Many of the teachers there are not trained. So you expect character to be molded at that stage? Before learning, there must be character, as that speaker said. So how do you mold character of pupils in such a setup? Government has a vital role to play in implementing education laws, standards, and regulations. Unless those schools are regulated, we cannot get the best out of our children.
All right, the Cybercrime Act 2015 prohibits producing child pornography, offering or making child porn available, distribution, transmission, whatever, anything that has to do with child pornography. In fact, Lagos State government actually pronounced 14 years jail term. But we see that even with this case of this scandalous video, we saw adults who got it and then it was being shared from hand to hand, from social media. It went viral. Let's consider the level of morality in our society. Many have said this is simply a reflection of what our society is, and that a lot is going on. It's just that this one came out. That how do we begin to start addressing this abnormality?
It's a big issue. I really don't know how we're going
That's
to
why we're
start
treating it on the
it's a big issue, sincerely. For instance,
that's why I mentioned the other time that everything starts from home. No, I'm not saying it's yes.
Yes,
I agree.
in the society.
When you give
now I know where you are going.
You bring the child back home, not to the society. As at that time you were in charge, as parents you were in charge. So the child will start growing in your presence. So whatever you are giving that child, yes, what's part of our recommendation should be that the training should continue. I know laws might be in place and all that, but I believe in something that, what if you don't know? Some people are doing all these things out of ignorance. Some children, they don't know. So where will they learn those things from? Once they start from home, they let it extend to the society. In our schools today, just like the person that talked earlier on this issue said, he said something that character first. How many schools now are actually talking about life skills? How many schools are telling those children that when you see bad things, how many schools are even making, like I commend one of the primary schools here, maybe St. Louis Nursery, they have a subject, particularly on moral education and instruction. How many secondary school has that in place? How many? So there's a way, like, when you train your child from home, schools must also have a way of training them on life skills. Even if the parents are failed, then what about the school? There must be a subject or a course like that. Because I believe that, like,
even
for example,
in these schools, they're supposed to have counselors.
Yes, but even the counselors, sometimes they only focus on children that have issues. But what about prevention? I think that is so much important
before it happens.
And prevention starts from home. I know laws should be in place, but there are so many people, that are involved in a lot of things now. In fact, if we begin to arrest, you'll find out that even our prison, we arrest everyone.
It's not about arrest.
So I believe that even in schools, there must be training on life skills. How to say no. Because I've met with a lot of children while practicing in psychiatry, that they will come to you and say, do you know this thing is wrong? They will say yes, but I was in the midst of my friends, I could not say no because I didn't want to go against whatever they've said. So how do
they need to belong?
They need to belong. And when if there are issues, everybody will be arrested. So he knows that from home, I've been told this thing is not good. But now you're in the midst of your friends. For you to now stand and say no might be difficult.
Okay.
I think what we need to pay attention to is that we must go beyond theory. You understand it? Let's go back to the past, as you said. How are we in the past? Our school system. For instance, you mentioned St. Louis. There are examples that people give in Akure here. But like I got engaged with somebody yesterday who were discussing this issue about the situation of our public schools. And he mentioned St. Louis, Fuashayi, and Uyemeko and Aquinas. And I said those schools are doing well because of the presence of the old student associations. The old students are the ones funding majority of what is going on in those schools. And because they are involved in the management of those schools. But beyond that, that's just like a percentage of the total school in Ondo State.
You were referring to St. Louis actually.
Okay, whatever school that because of the management of those schools and the involvement of these categories of people. But let's go back. Are the minds of these students or children engaged? Idleness as a way of, being a workshop for the devil. Then the students don't have any other thing than to move back. They hide within their phones and start doing many
When you
things.
say are they engaged at the primary level, at the secondary level, and they engage
They
now?
engage them
Are they engaged in
24/7.
primary schools? In our days in primary schools, every week you come back with your handcraft. It's either you weave a basket, it's either you do.
I think they still do that.
It's either you do. It's either you do. You see needle work or what do they call? You remember in those days. Some of those life skills, practical things, and there are things that will keep a child busy till the following day. Then look at some of the schools that we have today, the public schools. I mean the private schools. How many of them have playground? Students don't. Those are things that will keep a child busy. They play football, they play basketball, they jump, they do all those things. The totality of those things define a child. But now the only thing our children are finding recourse to when they're out of school is the phone. They stay glued to the phone. And like the man said, you were watching suddenly you are going to a particular page online, something will just pop up. All these, what they call these skits or dramas that they organize.
Skits.
The skits, okay, sorry, the skits. You see a lot of damaging skits online. They are literally sleeping with themselves online. Now people are allowing that to be shown and to be broadcasted on our channels around there. Government has to go beyond that. We must be practical in making appropriate laws and regulations. Laws must be put in place. I give you an example. I was visiting United States. Sometime I was there. My friend and I went into a store. And we were going out. We did some shopping, she carried those things, and we were pulling out. We were going out through the main door, and this alarm came up. There was a heavy alarm. I was afraid. I thought that maybe she shoplifted, maybe there was shoplifted, that she took a wrong product with that thing. And she went back. She said, I said, what went wrong? She said she bought alcohol. Because alcohol was in that trolley cart, it was not going to go out. So she had to go back. Went back and took a particular route that was designed for underage. Okay. And then now she had to put her ID, they scanned the ID to confirm her age. That is enforcement. We don't just make law and say a child must not carry a phone, must not go online. We must be critical in our thinking, in coming out with solutions to these problems as they are emerging.
Let's go back to that question. The fact that, talking law now, the fact that we have a law in place.
Yes.
And then with what happened, and then adults
are we implementing those laws? It's about, you don't just make law. Who are those that are monitoring that particular process? Do you have a way that we are monitoring the release of those things? Just the movie, or what to call it, the video is everywhere until YouTube blocked it. But some people must have downloaded it. You understand? And they can still circulate it. There must be a way to overreach those things. We are raising cyber security guys. Our universities are there. You see, we must find solution to the problem of the society. How do we raise, cyber security guys that can immediately when those things are coming up, that can raise a red alert.
Which falls back to you in the tertiary institutions.
Yeah.
What are you doing? So many will say, okay, what kind of research? What are we producing? Are we just going to school and bringing out, turning out graduates that are not?
Let us not go near that, because that is going to open up another Pandora box. You want the best to come out of the university system. You are not ready to fund the university system. You're talking about research. The research, where do you expect a lecturer that has not been paid for 3, 4 years, 4 months or 5 months to carry out research? Even the facilities are not in place. The reagents or whatever, computers and all those stuff that students are supposed to use, or the laboratories, or even in all other departments, there is poor funding of our institutions. You cannot get the best out of such an environment. Unlike in other countries, they are funding that we call research fund that every lecturer will have access to. This is a critical issue that you have just raised. In a society, in all those countries, a lot of donor organizations want to fund those things. Government will release money for funding of research into those things.
But you also mentioned donor organizations. Do we have that here?
We have.
We have. I think what we have are mostly organizations who are willing to invest in the entertainment world.
Yes.
Rather than in
that's
such
again,
ventures.
We have to redirect our focus. You understand, as a people. For instance, somebody is graduated from Ipaklai University as the best graduate in a department, you give him 10,000 naira. As the best graduate with first class. And now because one young girl is exposing her body, you understand, because if she's beauty one, when you give her a million, give her a brand new car, that is the value that we are projecting as a people. And those are the values that we're projecting.
All right,
so we need to redirect. But again, it's about our leaders. I always place these things, at the doorsteps of the leaders. The leaders must be ahead of the society in critical thinking. It's not just coming out to say, I want to be a member of the House of Assembly, House of Representatives. We must hold them accountable. Don't vote for just anybody. Vote for people that you think can think about the problem of the society. We have problem. Being a political leader is not just about building bridges or constructing roads. Okay. It's about giving leadership in areas that we're addressing now.
And still talking about this issue of the, scandalous video. One of the reports that have come out that is in the media space is the fact that this girl supposedly has a social media handle with her presence across, and that she makes some erotic videos dances,
before traveling,
before that issue happened. Now, what I want to bring out of this is the fact that obviously these children are very vast when it comes to digital technology. How much are parents doing, and do you think that parents can really keep up with what is going on at the moment?
Well, do you want to? Okay. You have raised a vital point. There are things we do that we think it's a status symbol, or maybe to show up, that we think directly damaging the future of these children, of ourselves. Go to private schools. You see all these children carrying the most expensive phones around. All those private schools where they are paying very well. Go there, the type of phone these people carry around. Sometimes they hide them by the time they are coming to school. At the end of the day, they carry those phones. And it's the parents that are buying these things for them. Parents should be able to guide their children in terms of access to internet facilities. It's not out of place. For instance, in a house, that you test your children not to be exposed to phone. I read about the particular person, I think the pastor, that said that he did not allow his child, that was an undergraduate, to own a phone until he was above 18.
Sometimes they give them assignments on this phone.
No, but if they are given assignment, if you are given an assignment, why can't you have a Wi-Fi at home and have a desktop or laptop at home that you can control as a parent? We must go. While in school, yes, like undergraduate, they stay. That is where the government is not doing work. So, I did my PhD program in South Africa. In my university in South Africa, we had up to 5 computer laboratories with about the least numbers of computers, you have about 500 internet-ready computers there in the university. But between 6 a.m. and 9:30 p.m., they won't allow you to access social media. It will be blocked.
Wow.
So if you like in the night, and at times they block it. And that's what I'm talking about.
In
the
enforcement.
Night,
who is going to guide them in the night? Because
in the night.
You know, when
I'm talking of undergraduates. These are mature
that's
people.
still some level of control.
That is control.
Okay.
But in your home, as a parent, now students cannot do without access to the internet. Can't we go extra mile by buying this Wi-Fi or don't know what you call it, that will cover the whole house? Then if a child has assignment, let him use the house computer set that is available there. Then you can control whatever is being done there.
On the computer.
I think that we must go extra mile. That's the point that I'm trying to make, that we must be on top of this situation. We must be ahead. Think about again what we have now. Nearly all the children now have access to one phone or another that they are carrying around. We think it's a status, it's an issue that has to show our status that we have arrived, but again, we are damaging these children with those access.
All right. One of the issues also that has come up, which Ashwaji Olapoji mentioned, is the fact that he's happy that the Lagos State government has taken action and shut down the school. But we were saying that, like many voices would say, what happened even when Dowan College was shut down, afterwards it was reopened. What do you foresee happening after this closure? Let me come to you, Mrs. Onibi.
After the closure, you know, I think maybe the
investigations are ongoing.
Yes,
the police says it's investigating the ministries in charge of education
and all that. Maybe by the time they finish with their investigation, I don't know. Maybe they will be able to, you know, at least put some measure in place before.
Would it be business as usual, perhaps swept under the carpet, or?
Oh, we cannot really say.
We
are not the government.
I align with our position.
Say what we have.
I align with our position. You cannot tell. We are used to government having this fire brigade approach. You know, when there's a crisis, they rush at we call it the initial gragra. They will rush out, you know, pretending to be doing one thing or another. But a responsible government should take advantage of the moment to come out with clear policy statements and positions that will change that situation. It's not out of place for government to come up with new position on taking children out on excursion or a trip outside the country. There should be a policy of government on that particular situation. Then again, government should take a critical look at boarding system. I'm not saying boarding cannot be eradicated, but there should be strict measures on management of these children when they are in the boarding system. So these are some of the things that I expect government to take a critical look at. Then again, the management of private schools in general. This is a wake-up call for all the state governors to come up with clear positions on the running of private schools. You know, our state is not an exception, and I think our state should wake up. A lot of schools are existing in this state that should not be called schools. And so they should go after those schools. Where those schools are not ready to amend, or there's no room for improvement, they should shut down some of these schools. Then roll out guidelines on how to run a boarding school. I think those are things that we should expect. It should not be initial grad. After some time, then nobody is talking about it again. Like she said, Doing College, we are yet to get the report. No position has been taken by the government in respect of that.
Okay, one of the issues I asked is, do you think a moral, a state of emergency should be declared on the moral crisis in Nigeria, especially with our future leaders? Talking about the pre-teens, the teens, and our young adults. The rate at which we're talking about ritual killings today, the way we're talking about Yahoo Plus and all of that, the way we're talking about different issues. Teens are beginning to aid kidnapping of other children. What do you think the federal government should be doing at this time, Ms. Sunibi?
I said it the other time because, like, I will always go back, as a psychologist and based on my profession, I will always go back home. I will always go back to foundation because even in diagnose, if we want to diagnose mental illness, we still go to the background. We want to see the upbringing, the factors that this person has been exposed to. We call them predisposing factors and all that. We always go to the background because we believe that what has happened in your past has a way of controlling your present. We can't rule out that. So we always go back to that. And like I said, that there are some things that children are supposed to learn from home. There are skills. We call them life skills. Part of them is what we call assertiveness. How to say yes and no. When you have integrity and you know that this thing is wrong, where is the internal motivation? Where is the internal strength? Where is your self-worth to stand even if everybody is against you?
Ashwaji was saying that today, which of the leaders will actually be calling up for a state of emergency on the state of our morals because they also have questionable characters.
They also have questionable characters. So now some of them, they actually want to do well, but because of the pressure around them, they can't stand in the midst of their friends to say yes or no to some particular thing because at home, they cannot even discuss. You can't look at your father's face. So there's no discussion, so you don't really have this skill. So by the time you go out, your mates, will be pushing you here and there. Then apart from the life skill, I talked about assertiveness, I talked about self-worth, I talked about empathy. If you can empathize with your dog at home, you won't take knife and be cutting another person's head. Empathy is not
for you,
there.
it's still from the home.
All those things, yes, it extends to the society. So what I will say is this: if the children have lost some things back home, because like the 15-year-old that you mentioned the other time, we learned that sometimes they will leave home and sleep 2 days outside. Where are the parents?
Where are the parents?
So the question is, if they've lost some of these skills, the life skills training at home, what are the schools doing about them? We can also take them up from school and start teaching them and training them on life skills.
Let's hear you, sir.
Well, I have said it. You said the laws are in place. But I made a point that implementation of our laws, we are not deliberate in the implementation of our laws. Let's take for example. There was an incident in Akumba about 3 or 4 weeks ago. Pupils were being taken to a private school. And the vehicle, you know the type of vehicles that people buy around now, so they will park lots of children in that car and taking them to school. In the course of this, there was a fire incident in Akumba. Early in the morning, some children got burnt. Second degree, serious incident that day. The question is about regulation and implementation.
So regulation.
Why do we allow people to be transported in such vehicle? Do we even take a look at those things? You see, it's about implementation. You're talking about declaring state of emergency. It's not about declaring state of emergency. It's about implementation of our laws and having responsible and responsive leadership.
All right, our time is actually fast spent. Thank you so much, Mrs. Evelyn Onibi, clinical psychologist, for coming to share your views with us on the big issue. Thank you so much to you as well, Associate Professor Olugbenga Okesama, Dean Faculty of Law at the Adekunle University. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm most grateful for the opportunity.
Yes, that's this edition on the big issue. We can only hope that all of this will be solved in no distant time. And parents, really, we all, every group in the society, we need to go back to the drawing board to put things right regarding the morals of our future leader. Till we come your way same time next week with another exciting edition, I am Obi Chukwemeka Uti. Bye for now.